Ah, so Benedict, we see how this is affecting the world of football. We put the fixtures for Saturday, which won't happen really.
Well, as of now, we don't know because yesterday the Premier League confirmed in a statement that the league will go on as scheduled. But after the Mikel Arteta case and that of Callum Hudson-Odoi and the Chelsea issue, as well as Benjamin Mendy, and then they came out with another statement that they will have an emergency meeting this morning. So it's at that meeting this morning that we'll know whether the Premier League will go on. But with an Arsenal manager, affected, a Chelsea manager, a Chelsea player also affected. Leicester City yesterday, Brennan, we just also talked about 3 players, showing symptoms of the virus. Then I think we'll be right and proper to suspend the league.
What is it about the Premier League? Because they seem to think or want us to believe, at least before this announcement of the emergency meeting, that the Premier League will go on irrespective of what we've seen happening in other leagues.
Aside it being all that they have in England, it gives them a lot in terms of revenue. And that's one thing this morning when I was coming, I was listening to the BBC, and even the stock markets drastically has gone down as low as 10%, right? And if it's affecting everything, how much more football? This is where people get their happiness, they get their money. Clubs, yesterday Manchester United had to refund their fans that bought tickets, plane airfare, and also match tickets, £350 each fan. So just imagine how many, if over 3,000 fans paid £500, you are now refunding 350. That's a loss to the club. You understand? So you look at all these things, and it's got to do with the economic issues, aside the entertainment bit.
But we could also have the Premier League being played at empty stadiums, and just filmed for television, so you can watch from wherever.
So that's what's happening elsewhere. La Liga, they've suspended it. Serie A, some of the matches will be behind closed doors. Other leagues, you go to Germany, will be behind closed doors. In Austria yesterday, we saw the Manchester United game against Lask, which was behind closed doors. But in the English Premier League, it's not just the fans. You're talking about the actors themselves. Now, Mikel Arteta, who is manager of Arsenal, who do you expect to be at the bench of Arsenal? You understand? You are talking of a player at Chelsea, who is an integral member of the Chelsea squad. You are talking about a Leicester City team that 3 of their players have shown symptoms of this virus. You don't expect them to be on the bench of Leicester City. If we're about the public, as we are witnessing elsewhere, then we could have said, okay, then let's go and play behind closed doors. As, La Liga wanted to do a similar thing, to play behind closed doors, until the Real Madrid case came. The Real Madrid, it wasn't a player of the first team, a player of the basketball team. They share the same facility for training. So, and as long as the player of the basketball team has been affected, then it comes down to the other players of the basketball team, as well as even the junior teams, because they all share the same facility. Where you touch, if I touch, I get a virus.
Yes.
You understand?
And we even know that some of these players also meet fans, and they handshake, they sign autographs. So I think they do so many things with the ordinary people. And you see, behind closed doors in the English Premier League, I don't know if you've been watching some of the games. The first behind closed doors after this incident, started coming up, I watched was the Juventus Inter Milan game. Ordinarily, that would have been a top game, a huge game. Playing in an empty stadium is not fun, actually.
Because
you don't feel any vibe.
Yeah, let me just even finish about the Juventus Inter Milan game. You look at that game, Inter Milan wanting to dethrone Juventus for the title. Juventus, wanting to extend their lead, and they have this game. Look at what is at stake for both teams, and then you play behind closed doors. No fun, nothing. It's just like a training game. Yeah. If you are used to, if you are used to, watching teams train, that's how it feels like.
Even ordinarily when they train, there are a few fans. There are few fans,
and this is a competitive game. Yeah. You understand? So just look at an English Premier League game involving Liverpool, Manchester United with no fans.
Exactly.
Don't even look at Liverpool, Manchester United. Look at the other games. There were going to be some great games this weekend. Yeah. You look at a huge Tottenham Hotspur stadium.
What does this all mean? I mean, if the announcement comes and it says we've postponed, because we've seen others postpone for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, what would it mean? Because people buy tickets in advance.
So what it means is that you get to keep your ticket. that will not go away. It definitely will not go away. The league also will not be truncated. So I think that we have to make this distinction. You know, I've seen people post on Twitter, on other social media platforms, especially the against, you know, the AS Union, the against supporters union. You know, Liverpool, most fans, you know, they don't want Liverpool to win the league, right?
Masa.
I'm sure.
Where are you coming from?
Oh no.
Okay, just go on.
It's got to do with what is trending and what people are talking about. So, for instance, some say, "Oh, let's suspend the league, and then when we are back, we start all over again." No,
that won't be possible.
That won't be possible.
So, wherever we end, we have to pick up from there.
Absolutely. So, if you are suspending the league this weekend, if they're not going to play this weekend, and or come back in a month's time, we'll still continue where they left off. So, it won't happen.
But I think it's taking, I see where the Liverpool thing is coming in. It's taking the shine out of them because...
Yeah, it would have been great because they could have actually won the league this weekend.
But nobody asked them to lose the games that they lost as well. No, then this would have been quicker.
At least it's got to do with Manchester City's game. If Manchester City had played Arsenal in midweek, you know that game was also postponed. If they had played that game in midweek and City had lost, and also their upcoming fixture against Burnley this weekend, if they had lost, Liverpool would have been crowned champions this
So
weekend.
that tells you don't expect somebody to lose for you to win.
Yeah, of course. You have to win
your
games. But at least they've lost just a game in the season.
Yeah. So for those of us, you know, just before we close this conversation, for those of us in Ghana, when should we be expecting, because we're so passionate about, now we're passionate about our local league, but of course we are also very passionate about the English Premier League. When should we be expecting some concrete answers to all the questions that we're raising?
So yesterday, the Football Association released a statement on this at the back of President Ronaldo's speech, and they talked about their collaboration with the Confederation of African Football. They've also released a statement with respect to the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers and also the CHAN 2021. They said the qualifiers will go on as planned, but most of the European teams, what they are doing now is they don't want to allow their players to travel for international duty. So that's also something we should look at. And I think that CAF will meet again. Yesterday, they released another statement that today and then by Monday, they will come out with a series of statements to update us on what is going to be the next line of action if the qualifiers at the end of the month are going to come on. But here, we just, you know, recorded our first 2 cases. That was last night. So we'll monitor the situation and see if it's something that we can't go on with the league. I'm sure definitely the Football Association will act because they say what you don't have to be at where a lot of people are.
Exactly.
And yesterday at the Accra Stadium, so many people, and you know our touching thing in this country and all that. So I think that we all have to be very careful.
Yeah. It's true.
And as much as we want to enjoy the game.
Something happened yesterday. We had some great personalities come through the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, the City Hall. We had reps from the Start Ghana Foundation, the CDD, IDEC, as well as many other people. And we kind of almost forget that we don't shake. So you see that we're shaking, and they say, "Oh, we don't shake. Can we do this?" So it will take a while for us to get it.
Even this, we have to stop. Just avoid
because
everything.
Just avoid bodily contact.
Absolutely. So you just avoid everything. Yeah.
So we will get there. We will get there. We started from somewhere. I haven't touched you today.
No.
No hugging.
I like previously when I come, we'll hug and all that. Now, you know.
Now we're not doing that. So let's all learn in bits. Benedict will be giving us the updates in the world of sport in terms of what has changed. So we're keeping an eye on the Ghana Premier League, any announcement that they'll bring in terms of the continent's football. And then we're also keeping an eye on the English Premier League with the announcement whether or not they're going to suspend their league. Plenty more. In the meantime, the figures are still going up. We'll come back and share some with you. And then we'll try and get some answers. These 2 persons that we're told have coronavirus, who exactly are they? Where did they come from? What kind of airlines were they on? The contact tracing, how exactly are we doing that? Are people given the right information at the points of entry so that you can easily track them? All of those questions we'll try and get some answers to here on the show. So please stay with us.
Here's what you...
All right, you're still with us here on the AM show. Joining me is the lead with our help desk, Fred Smith, this JoyNews editor, also heads our help desk. He usually has the background and a lot of information on health. Fred, good morning to you.
Good morning.
There are so many questions that we're asking on these 2 cases that we've recorded. Interesting that the first time we've recorded a case, we recorded 2. All we know is what was said in the press conference.
Indeed.
So just take us through what has been said to us again.
What we've been told is that these 2 people came into Ghana through our airport. We are not told if the case was detected at the airport or not, but our checks have not been able to reveal to us that it was detected there. So I'm assuming they may have gone through the airport and then the case was detected later. If that is the case, we're told that they've been isolated for now and currently under observation. We are not told when this happened, if they came through the airports, when they came, and who the others that they came with are, because the flight would have come with other people. So this morning, there's a lot of work going on at the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health, trying to trace anybody in between, anybody they've come into contact with since the day they've been in Ghana. So the staff at the airport, the taxi or whoever driver took him to their hotel or their home, who they went into a meeting with, the things they've been doing over the period. If it's a long time ago, say 2 weeks ago, they would have come into contact with many people. So all of these people will have to be contacted.
So the critical question of when did they come into the country? When did we realize that they had the virus? Indeed. Did they check themselves into a hospital, or were they picked up when they arrived in Ghana?
Indeed.
That will also help in terms of who to contact, or who they might have come into contact with. Are we likely to get all this information? Because, you know, people are also panicking. You can confirm that there are a lot of people who are waking up to this news this morning that we've recorded 2 cases.
Yes, I do understand that there's an emergency meeting which is starting this morning, and it will flesh out all the things that people are asking so that they will be able to brief us adequately. For instance, if you want to know when, maybe we'll be able to get that from the Ghana Health Service later on when they do a briefing. For now, we must just take it that 2 people
so how about the airline? How about the airline? How did they get into Ghana? Was it on airplanes?
Yeah. According to the statement, those people flew into Ghana and I'm assuming they came with an airline that already flies into Ghana. So, and one of the 2 we're told comes from Turkey, and we know there's a direct flight to Turkey, the Turkish Airlines. Turkish comes into Ghana in the evenings, and so we will expect that this person came through our airport in the evening on the day that they came.
So that's still not very clear, right? Because then they may because what we've been told is there's a Turkish
and Norwegian.
So now we don't know if they came directly from their countries, or they came through other
Turkey
places.
or other places.
Exactly.
So we need that information as well, so that whoever may have been in contact.
All right, you're still with us here on the AM show on the Joy News channel. We've been talking about the coronavirus in the aftermath of the 2 cases that we've recorded here in Ghana. In the last 30 minutes, we're getting a bit of clarification on the 2 persons who were told entered Ghana who are carrying the virus. So we've picked this from the Graphic website. Its headline, one of the confirmed coronavirus cases is a Ghanaian. This is attributed to the Information Minister, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah. And this was the Daily Graphic monitoring him as he spoke on Peace FM this morning. So the story says the Minister of Information, Mr. Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, has revealed that one of the confirmed coronavirus cases in Ghana is a Ghanaian. He said it is a Ghanaian citizen who works in Turkey and returned to Ghana for a visit with the disease. If you go down, it says the other person is a Norwegian citizen. They are both males. Mr. Nkrumah revealed, and they entered Ghana through the Kotoka International Airport. So that's what we have in terms of update from the graphic online saying that the information minister says one of the two, one is Ghanaian, Fred, working in Turkey, who returned to visit and was carrying the disease. So it comes back. These two persons came through from the Kotoka International Airport, but we know we don't just have one entry point, even when you come through Kotoka.
So at Terminal 3, where our international arrivals are received, you would have all the masses using the Terminal 3. But there's also the VVIP, so if the person is a very important person, they will most likely use that place. And we have not been told specifically who these people are. And we have also not been told what measures are in place at the VVIP.
Okay, so you've been to the airport how many times? Have you been to were you at the VVIP? Do we know if the same measures are at the VVIP?
We've never been given access to the VVIP and what measures they have there. It is the general Terminal 3 area where we've been allowed to look at what happens there.
Okay, so questions are being raised, obviously because the information is also coming that these are very high-profile Ghanaians. So the possibility they may not have come through the general entry point where, you know, people like us would use. If they came through the VVIP, could it be that we missed it at that point? But these are still questions that we're raising on the back of the news that we're getting. So we'll bring you a lot more on that. Fred is the head of our health desk. He is embedded in the show today because of this news, so there will be more information to share. But let's go live now to the Department of Microbiology, the University of Ghana, and Roland Walker is having a conversation with virologist Reverend Professor Kwamina Sego.
To somebody who is a clinician, who is always on ground as well. But the two I have here, and then we'll be joined by a third, just to give ourselves a comprehensive picture as to the do's and don'ts, what we think we're looking at, and as a country, how we need to tackle this head on. And we have somebody who has been a regular on the show, a better part of the discussion on this subject over the last couple of days, and the Reverend Professor Kwamina Sego is right here. He is a virologist, and I have to say good morning to you.
Good morning.
And then also to my right is Professor Alfred Yawson. He is the public health expert. He's a community medical person. And I have to say good morning to you, Prof.
Good morning, Roland.
Okay. So, but let's put all this into better perspective. So I'll start with you because you are the lab person.
But I think I would prefer you start from the community.
Oh, the community. Okay.
From the community into the lab.
Okay. Okay. So we'll do that.
Yes.
Okay. And so let me start with you, Professor Yawson. Now that this is here with us at the community level, in the homes, in the schools, in the gatherings, all of us obsessed with making sure we socialize, etc. What are some of the basic things we need to do?
Okay, thank you, Roland. Yes. Now that the virus is here and we have recorded cases, it is important for all of us to be active and aggressive in protecting ourselves. So the common things that we have always been advocating. First, we must keep personal hygiene in terms of hand washing, keeping your hand clean. We call it hand hygiene. Soap, running water, excellent. We can also have the alcohol hand rub as frequently as possible. And we also avoid handshaking, close contacts with people, and therefore, under these circumstances, mass gatherings should be limited as much as possible. You know, in our cultural settings, it's quite difficult. And even under these circumstances, we are planning funerals, parties where people will come together. And that is where the issues are. We need to educate the public to know that until we get a handle of this and know how it is progressing, we should, as much as possible, suspend some of these gatherings. And at churches, in places where we gather to worship, shaking, commiserating with people is fine, but we should avoid it as much as possible under these circumstances. In the schools as well, we need to encourage the teachers and equip them with the skill and knowledge to know what to tell the children, how to keep their hands clean and avoid touching surfaces that are potentially contaminated. So it is quite important that we target these areas at the community level. Schools, churches, institutions, prisons, orphanages, all those areas are very important. Our junior secondary schools, primary schools, senior secondary schools, universities, polytechnics, everywhere where students gather, especially in our crowded classrooms and all that. We need to take a serious look at these.
And we are doing this, Professor Sego, because we feel that we need to complement what the normal states public health institutions should be doing. 2 cases confirmed in a normal hypothetical situation, and this one cannot be hypothetical. This is what has transpired. Somebody is on a flight, etc. Just take me through the routines from the destination in country.
Okay, so basically,
what are the likely sources or likelihood of contacts before we even come to the related issues of tracing and all?
maybe my first point is that I think we should be very sincere with ourselves, because especially, for example, if you knew we were on the flight and you came with the flight and you knew that you have come into contact with these people who have been tested positive, it lies on you to decide that I'm calling the health officials, I want to self-isolate myself. So we should be sincere with ourselves. I mean, even if you're a family member, if I know that I've come into contact with someone and they say the person is tested positive, as a responsible person, I should say that, look, this is my family. We need to keep ourselves away from public for a while and observe ourselves. So we should be very sincere with ourselves, because government can do its best. But we, the citizenry, would push what they are doing. Otherwise, then we might as well, because what we do is extremely important. The second thing I want to bring in now is that I have learned, I spoke to Joy FM before I came here, and I've learned that one of the people is a Ghanaian, one of the those who tested positive is a Ghanaian. Yes. So we should remove that myth that Africans cannot be infected. We shouldn't go there. There may be other reasons why we don't have that level of infections here as compared to China, Europe, and other places in America. So we need to be careful. So we should close that myth now, now that we have a Ghanaian who has tested positive in our own country. Okay, so now you have normally what you have called an incubation period. If you are infected by a virus, not only viruses, by any infectious agent, there's a time when from infection to a point where you will not show any symptoms. You look just like any of us sitting here where you are not sick. And sometimes these things you can transmit through, even though you are not showing any signs, somebody can actually pick it up from you, because the virus may be growing in your body, you see. So as the virus grows, maybe it needs to get to a certain level to destroy your respiratory tract to a certain level before you start showing the symptoms. So not having any symptoms doesn't mean you cannot transmit to someone. That's what we call the incubation period. And I think we should also bear in mind that a lot is still, the virus is unfolding and people are still trying to find out how does it really behave. So we should have maximum protection as much as possible. And so that's why they're doing contact tracing. The assumption is that these people sat on the plane. Did they touch anything on the plane? Were their hands somewhere? Were they coughing into the air? And did people inhale when we're coughing? So anything could have happened. So the idea of contact tracing is to make sure that those people are observed over a period of time.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
So I'm talking about 2 people.
Yes.
2 cases, I'll call them 2 cases. Yes. Before they left their place of origin, wherever they came from, they'll go through certain checks. Left their hotel rooms or homes.
Yes.
They take a cab. Those are the things I want you to take me through, the routine.
Okay, I mean, you said it already. So basically,
I have not said
no. So they probably may have even gone to church or to the mosque before coming, and they went to the airport. They went through the processes. They may have gone to it. Probably people buy ticket online, so probably they bought it online. They paid online, but they picked a cab, or they were living with their family. Okay, their children will go to school or they will go to work. So let's look at the big picture. And then they have now come to Ghana on the flight. They met people. They picked the cab from the airport home, or somebody picked them. That person would meet another person. I mean, you don't want me to go through all this.
Stop there. So now we have a plane, a flight.
Yeah.
Let's say 150 passengers, let's say 200 passengers, let's say 100 passengers, what is the possibility, based on your expertise, that contact could be made? And I'm not talking about personal contact, atmospheric contact, if there's anything of the sort, that those individuals in the plane, these numbers could be endangered.
Well, it's very high for me, because in the plane people move. And if droplets, you see, you're using the same washroom. So let me even use just the washroom. If I went to the washroom and I was coughing and I was sneezing and I didn't even wipe the surfaces there, which means anybody who's gone to the washroom to touch those surfaces, I'm just using one example, anybody who's touched those surfaces is likely the next thing it goes to his hand. Anything can happen, and that person may be touching different things, even interacting with the air hostesses. So the chances are very high, but of course it also depends on the level of the nature of infection, how far the infection had progressed when they were on the flight. So there are several factors that would determine the possibility of somebody getting infected. But we should always remember that depending on the amount of the virus you come into, and I hesitate to say even just an infectious agent, it's not just you coming into contact. The amount you come into contact with is also important. So the severity of your disease, whether you remain without symptoms, may be determined by several factors, including your own self, the ability of your immune system to be able to fight the virus. So there are several things. It's not just one thing that determines your outcome.
That's why you're the virologist. Yeah. We'll come back to you on the subject. But you being a community health expert from the airport, I mean, we all have been to Terminal 3. You look at the contacts, etc., and we're told that these were determined at the airport. What's the likelihood that a lot of people could have been contacted or could have interacted with these cases within the precinct of the airport and beyond?
Yes. Currently, some important measures are being put in place at the airport to screen people. And the people working, immigration officers, custom officers, have been educated on how to keep a little distance between them and passengers coming, and using non-contact thermal measurement for measuring thermometer. So as much as possible, we try to reduce the contact with suspected persons, because you will only determine it when you have tested them. So the interaction with them, we try to minimize the contact, close contact with passengers as much as possible. So we are hopeful and trusting that if they went through the lay-down procedures and the precautions that they've been taught, then the risk is not very high. We can't say it doesn't exist, but we can say potentially the risk may not be as high for those who are engaged in interacting, checking the passengers, taking their information and all that. They've been trained. Is the, as he said, other members of the community getting into a taxi, getting into a trotro, whatever means that they make to get to their homes, and even getting home and interacting with the people at home. So it is important, if we are able to determine and get these cases at the airport, then immediately we trigger the actions that have been put in place so it doesn't get outside the airport, because that's where it becomes challenging, when it gets into the open community and people really don't know who is carrying what.
So let's educate people. I mean, seriously. We've confirmed 2. And if we confirm 2, it means that they had enough viral load, or I'll ask the virologist very soon, to be confirmed. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yes. So the others on the plane, theirs is now building up.
Well, it doesn't mean
infected. As Professor Sego said, it doesn't mean, it's how much contact you have, how much load was there you are exposed to, and all that. So it is quite pretty difficult. That's why we say we need to contact trace and quarantine them. We cannot say that so long as, or as long as you've come into contact with an infected person, you are likely to get the condition. No, that is not. But it is the risk is higher for you than somebody who hasn't come into contact with anybody at all. So the point is that you need to be quarantined. You need to be observed. We prevent all activities for you interacting with others until such a time that we are sure that you are not likely to have gotten the infection.
If we have to count back, at what point in time can a case said to be confirmed? That would it mean that maybe 5-10 days ago or before that person had gotten into contact, or a day before, and so at a point in time we can have a confirmation?
Okay, let me put it. So you see, when they test and they detect a signal that the virus is present, then you are confirmed. But these are people who are normally sick and have the case definition that we have. Okay. But you can also take a sample from somebody who probably is not sick and get confirmed that the person has. They're healthy carriers at that stage, and they can also spread it. So it's not just for those who are sick. Okay. So, but because we have a case definition, we are testing. The testing is focused more on those who are sick.
For other viruses or viral infections, you need to have a certain load for you to get confirmed. Wait, I understand. Yes. I understand. So I know this one is still under study. Is it possible somebody may have gotten into contact with a case, and because of the immune system of the person, the load is so low, you will do a test or go through the normal processes or guidelines. So the person is out there in the community, has not tested from the airports through the other routines, and it would take some days for it to incubate, you talk?
Okay, I think what you're trying to find out is how efficient is the test.
When does, from the...
So you're talking about load. Every test you perform, okay, normally has a range where it's most efficient. Okay, and I can't tell you now because I haven't seen the range. So you're saying that it's likely that when you have this amount of virus within this range, if you test, you definitely pick it. Okay, there's always a range which may be too low.
So is it possible somebody is below the range, and so they've gone through the protocols and nothing?
From the virology standpoint of view, my opinion is that because these people are sick, if it is being caused by coronavirus, it's very unlikely that you will test and not find it.
What about somebody healthy?
Well, somebody healthy, it may vary. It may depend on the person, along what time the person picked it up. You also have to remember that the fact that a person has been infected, okay, when the person is infected, there's always a phase where you want to, because the virus has to establish the infection. Okay, so yes, I'm not too sure of the sensitivity, how sensitive the test is, but I'm certain that once the virus is there, the test they are using is able to amplify the genome. In simple terms, you know, every virus has something within it that determines its information, that's its structure, okay? Just like...
in other words, you are saying that...
It's important for the public to know this. You look like your father or your mother?
My father.
Okay, your father. Okay, good. So if you look like your father, you collected some information from your father. When the fusion of the sperm and the egg came, your father's information, part of it was dominant to that which determined what your mother also contributed, right? That information that determines what you look like. Viruses also have that kind of information that determines how the virus behaves and what the virus looks like. Okay, so depending on how much is there, how many copies of the virus, numbers of the virus are there, when you extract it, that's what you want to detect. The test is able to make artificial copies of what is there, so that it becomes high enough for you to determine that it is present or absent.
In my lay language, it's able to drill down to get the minutest.
It's able to...
Micro.
It's able to... You just like a radio amplifier. What does an amplifier do? it raises the volume. Yeah, so that's all the test does. Even if you have a few copies of that virus there, it may blow it up so that you see that, oh, this was there, but now I've amplified it so you can see it properly.
After you've amplified, could there be some that is undetectable?
I don't know why you're interested in the undetectable.
No, because we have a lot of people who may not.
So let me put it this way. So that is why we should emphasize on the preventive measures. So assuming that some people are even undetectable, okay, and are walking around because they don't have symptoms, okay. But the fact that you don't have symptoms doesn't mean it's undetectable, though. So there's a complete picture. But let's all work in such a way that we can assume that everywhere I go, the virus is there. So I need to protect myself.
Community level. Now, the Professor Sego is saying people should be self-aware, self-quarantine and all that. We have families, and then we have workers at the front line of health. What should we be expecting of them?
All right. So, as much as possible, all health facilities have been engaged and are training their frontline workers. For example, we are in Kolebu, and then we have trained all those who work at the entry point and almost all the people who come into contact with people getting into the hospital for the first time. We have also limited access. So it's not open and you can't go through everywhere. We are getting designated places where people coming in will have to go and checks will be done as much as possible. We have also trained the workers at these areas to know what distances to keep between them and patients, what protective gear they need to wear. And once we take a history, we interact with you, even before touching you as a patient, and we suspect that you meet certain indications that you are likely to have the condition, then we trigger the processes. We will quarantine you, we remove you quickly. We have what we call holding bays. You'll be kept at the holding bay, and then a test will be done, and then if it comes as negative, if it's positive, then you'll be taken to the national treatment centers or isolation centers. So as much as possible, and I believe Ghana Health Service is doing the same for all district facilities, polyclinics and all that, so that the health workers at the front line are educated, are skilled enough to protect themselves and also protect other patients.
If I look at the communities in which I've lived and the ones that subsequently I've interacted with, people, because of cost issues, don't sometimes go to hospitals, even the public hospital. They first go to a pharmacy to perform medical treatment for them. Then they go to a smaller clinic close by before then they go to the public facility. Which ones are you talking about? All these things you've said.
Good. That's why the current mode of education and is going on is that when you suspect any of the symptoms, cough, fever, difficulty in breathing, headache, and all that, we have given some numbers to call. And Ghana Health Service has put it out there. And if anything at all, you can also call the national ambulance number 112 or 193. These people have also been trained. They know what to do. They will tell you what to do. So we are encouraging the public to use these avenues. Don't walk straight into a health facility, into a chemical shop, into a herbal center. No, try and call for the expert to give you the advice. They will tell you, you don't need to come to the facility, stay at home, do A, B, C, and D. So we want to encourage the public to use these numbers and lines as much as possible. Don't, we call it translocate yourself. We are even avoiding the use of transportation. Translocate yourself to the health facility, because in doing so, as you said, you may take a trotro, you may take a taxi, you may take an Uber, the Uber drops you, picks another person, and that's where the challenge is. So we are encouraging people, once you have the symptom, it may not, the fact that coronavirus or COVID-19 is around doesn't mean the normal common colds that we have will not exist. So people will come down with common cold, people will be coughing, people will have all these symptoms. It doesn't necessarily mean it is coronavirus. That's why we say you call, get the advice. The people will tell you exactly what to do. If you need to get or be transported or translocated to a health facility, they will give you the appropriate advice. So we want to encourage the public to use these avenues that are there. What you said is perfectly right. Our health-seeking behaviors, we know the challenges with it. But we are encouraging people not to get into the facility as the first option. Try to call, get an advice as to what to do, and then you take it from there.
We're educating, no?
Yes.
Are you saying if somebody has cold, cough, slight fever, headache, which is symptomatic of the normal tropical diseases we have, you should call?
And you are worried, and ordinarily you want to go to the pharmacy shop or the health center to go and access service. That's why we're saying it is prudent that in that case you call. It is less expensive for all of us, rather than we not knowing and you have it and you come into contact with so many people before you are seen by the health officials. So you call, let's know that you are coming with A, B, and C, and we are already suspicious. So when we come, whatever measures that need to be taken will be taken for you, and then you'll be advised appropriately. Sometimes you may not even need to come to the facility at all, based on the advice that you'll be provided when you call the hotlines that have been provided. So as much as possible, we are encouraging the public not to walk straight into health facilities as the first point of action to be taken. Use the numbers. There may be challenges. Use the numbers, call National Ambulance, describe your symptoms and all that, and they will offer you the necessary support that you need.
Professor Sego, how far should the normal clinics, the pharmacies, etc. go in getting to the best point of contact to get to ascertain whether what they are seeing is or is not?
But I think that I want to emphasize what Prof. Yawson said. You see, if you feel that you're sick and you're walking through people, maybe you're not going with your own car, you're going to get into contact with many people, and we were talking about contact tracing. So the fact is, assuming I picked a taxi, I was coughing and sneezing into the taxi. Who is going to find that taxi driver for me? I probably don't even know his taxi number. And even if it turns out that I'm positive, I can't remember that I actually even contacted that taxi driver. So it is prudent to call. They have given us numbers. In fact, just this morning, I've seen the numbers revised. Let us use the structures. You see, we need to help government to be able to be successful. Let us use those numbers. You suspect you've come into contact with many people. I was speaking to my nephew this morning. He said, oh, he met people who had come from this country, so upon this case, he's fretting. I mean, we should use what is available to us. Let us call those numbers. And the underlying thing is that we should be sincere with ourselves and with the health facility. There's a structure for practice of medicine. We know that the first point of call. I mean, I'm not a pharmacist, but I know they discourage self-medication. Okay, pharmacy shops are allowed to work to a certain point, and then the clinics or the health sectors, the health institutions will take over. I think that it's important that in this era, when you are having any of these symptoms, or especially if you know you've had contact with somebody from any of the countries, it is prudent for you to call and say, look, this is what I'm experiencing. What should I do? I think it's fairly simple.
This morning, we had interactions, and there are fears that because of the nature of our contacts, church, funerals, trotro. What's your advice?
That's why we've started the education, and I'm hoping that the TV stations, right now a lot of information is out there. I think there's a lot of talking that has been done. So we've started this education. I think we should intensify it. The fact is, if that's trotros your only means of transport, you can't say you won't go. Okay? So let's do practical things. After work, you can even have a bath. Assuming you've even come into contact with this, where you wash your hands, you have a bath. If there's anything lying anywhere on your face, you think you wash it off. So let's do practical things to minimize the possible spread. And that's why, for me, the knowledge of spread is very important. Our hands are key. Anybody, I touched this, I don't know who has sat here, but I don't know who left here, whether the person was coughing or whether the person was running a temperature, but I've come to hold it. Now, should have this small bottle of sanitizer. And when I finish anything, I sanitize my hand. When I get back to my office, I wash my hands. Let's do practical things. When you go out into the shop,
all right, so that's a lot of information on what to look out for, what to do because of this coronavirus. We'll continue the education, but that's Roland Walker live from the Microbiology Department of the University of Ghana Medical School, interacting with virologist Reverend Professor Kwame Nasego and Professor Alfred Yawson. We hope that we've given you a lot of information to arm yourself. That's the whole idea. Together we can face and conquer this virus that's wreaking havoc in the entire world. We will talk about the National Science and Maths Quiz. It's got into the championship stage, but this is something we haven't experienced before because we're still at the regionals. We'll come back and let you know a lot of things that you perhaps haven't discovered yet with the National Science and Maths Quiz. Stay with us.